What to do, what to do. This is the Brothers on Books podcast, where we find great books that will give you real value and actionable steps and have fun in the process. Please reach out to us at brothersonbooks@gmail.com for any book recommendations, or if you would like to be a guest host for a particular book you have in mind. A great review or rating on whichever platform you're listening to would be greatly appreciated. And lastly, if you can think of any friend, family member, or coworker that might like this episode, please pass it along. I'm Alex Allweil, and with me as always is my brother Jack Allweil. Jack, how are you? And what book are we doing today?
I'm doing quite well, Al. How are you?
I'm doing splendid.
I wish my fantasy team could pick it up a little bit, but I'm happy we're discussing this. And today we'd like to welcome Jason Brown to the show. Jason is the author of Margin Matters, How to Live on a Simple Budget and Crush Debt Forever. He also co-authored the book, I Wasn't Expecting All This, Memoir of a Grateful Coach, with NCAA Hall of Fame softball coach Scott Whitlock. But today we are talking with Jason about his newest book, It Is Possible, How I Earned 2 Debt-Free Degrees and How You Can Too. The book serves as his answer to the student loan debt crisis and provides strategies, tips, and hope to individuals who desire a higher education without debt. Welcome to the show, Jason.
Thanks, guys. I really appreciate you guys having me on and talking about this very serious crisis that just continues to spiral out of control and get worse and worse. But I appreciate you guys having me on.
Yeah, we appreciate you being here.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a great. Yeah, I met Jason through the FinCon authors group, so it's kind of cool how we got in touch. So, Jason, if you could maybe talk about the current problem and the events that led to this current environment.
Yeah, like I said, man, it's just a situation that just continues to get worse. So this is really interesting. So the cost of college has skyrocketed over 1,600% since 1975. So there's nothing else that has outpaced the cost of college, the rise of the cost. So what that has led to is to the situation that we're in today is that we have $1.7 trillion of total student loan debt in our country that is carried by 45 million Americans. $1.7 trillion represents the second highest debt total in our country, second only to mortgage debt, which is absolutely astonishing when you think about all the different types of debt in our country. This is number two. And now we're in a situation where 70% of all college students leave college with debt, with some form of debt. 70%. That's really, really not a good situation. So how this, the real core issue, right, guys, the core issue of how this is manifesting and continuing to grow is really three things. It's lack of awareness, lack of resources, and most importantly is lack of financial literacy. So we're not providing information and resources and awareness to parents of kids, to high schoolers, to junior high schoolers that are looking to go to college. They just don't have the information or the wherewithal or the resources or the financial literacy. They don't have that knowledge to know, hey, maybe not taking out $80,000 of debt is not the wise choice. So that's kind of where we're at, and that's kind of led us to the situation that we're in now.
There's a cool part in the book where you explain the space race, 1957, yes, and how that kind of trickled in to some of the things we're seeing today. I don't know if you could shed some light on that.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, Jack. When I was researching my book, or actually when I was writing my book, I kind of woke up in the middle of the night and I thought, well, shoot, how did this all start? Like, where did this come from? When was the first student loan? Like, I don't even have that. Like, let me research this. So I started researching it and I found out what I discovered, I couldn't even believe. So I had to go to several sources. I started watching a lot of documentaries. I was like, this is really true. Is this really what happened? So in 1957, the Soviet Union launched a satellite into space called Sputnik. And the United States was so humiliated and so embarrassed that somebody else launched a satellite into space before us. At the time, it was our president was President Eisenhower, and he, after the Soviets launched theirs into space, we tried to launch ours, and it failed, which led to even more embarrassment and more humiliation. So Dwight Eisenhower, our president, decided to he wanted to focus on education, on all those STEM, those STEM programs that would lead to space education for kids in schools. So at the time in our country, only 8% of Americans even had a bachelor's degree. And the reason why that is because they simply couldn't afford it. Surprise, surprise. And the other reason why is because back then, banks weren't interested in loaning teenagers thousands of dollars to go to school because they were afraid that they weren't going to pay it back. Another shocking surprise, right? So what happened was Eisenhower signed into law it was called the National Defense Education Act. And that was the very first student loan, federal student loan program. And I believe that was in 1958. So that's how it all started. He wanted students to get better in science, math, and engineering so they could, develop these kids into beating the Soviets into space. So that's how it all started. And here we are in the situation that we are in now.
That was later sort of elaborated into almost anyone can then get loans to go to college, correct?
Yeah,
I've heard that's
yes.
a substantial problem of why we have so much debt. And I think you sort of allude to it with some of the alternatives, is that anyone can get loans to go to school now.
Yeah, you're right, Al. And that's the problem, is basically anyone that has a pulse can get a loan. So what's happened is a lot, of course, since 1958, a lot has changed. President Reagan did some enhancement to it. And then around 2009 and 2010, during the Obama administration, the federal government completely took over the loan system. That was the last big thing that happened. But to answer your question, Al, yeah, the problem now is that because people can get loans so easily, like you were saying, that incentivizes all the colleges and universities to continue to raise tuition. So why would they bring the cost down? Like I was talking about, the 1,600% increase since 1975. Why would they bring the cost down if people can just go out and get loans for whatever the price is? So that's the problem now, and that just spirals out of control.
Not only really get loans, sort of as you mentioned in the book, they're in many regards they're encouraged to take the loans out, and you're encouraged to go to college.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you just reminded me of a story. One of the girls that I actually interviewed in the book, she told me this story about when she went to for her orientation and everything, and they sit them down and they present them the options. These are your options: option A, option B, option C. They're all debt options. Those are the only options that they're given. And she said, Jason, you know what? If it weren't for the fact that my dad was with me, he was in the room with her. He grabbed her by the arm and dragged her out of the room. She said, if my dad wasn't there, I would have just signed one of those papers, not even knowing. She's like, well, I guess these are the only choices that I have. And see, that's part of the problem. I was talking about the lack of awareness and our young students say they need to understand that's not your only option. Debt is not your only option. There's so many ways to pay for college besides going into debt, like you were saying now.
So I guess, you in the second third of the book, you go through a lot of stories. How about you just walk through how you got your debt-free degrees?
Oh, sure. I'm glad you asked that, Jack. So I got both my degrees at Kennesaw State University, which is a school located just north of Atlanta, Georgia, for those of who might be listening that don't know the area. So I got my undergrad degree. I'll be in the spirit of transparency. I actually went to school for undergrad in the mid to late 90s. So school wasn't that expensive back then. But the first thing I did was I lived at home. My parents allowed me to live at home. So I saved a significant amount of money just by doing that, because in most cases, the cost of living is going to be higher than your school costs, than your tuition costs. So that's what that's something that people don't realize. the cost of living is going to be more than what you're paying for school. So I was able to live at home. It was actually a commuter school at the time. So I just drove to school and drove back home. So that saved me money. So when I went to school, I actually worked 3 jobs. I worked 2 jobs on campus, and then I worked at a retail job. We had a mall across the street. So it was really convenient. All my jobs were right there on campus. So I was working 3 jobs to pay my way through school, but I also earned scholarship money too. So when I was an undergrad, I really wanted to become a sports broadcaster and a sports journalism major. So I actually got involved in the athletics and KSU athletics department. So I started volunteering and working games and stuff like that, and just hanging around, did some internships with them. Now they never paid me. They didn't have the budget to pay me anything, but what they did do was that they put me on scholarship in lieu of paying me. So my junior year, I got a book scholarship. I was on book scholarship. So I got all my books paid for through a scholarship through athletics. And then my senior year, they put me on a full athletic scholarship, which to my knowledge, I was the first non-athlete to get an athletic scholarship. I hope I didn't take a scholarship away from an athlete, but I don't think I did. But that was just kind of their creative way to compensate me. So I got a full scholarship my senior year. And then other things I did that, cut the cost down. Of course, I bought used books. And another thing I did was I stretched out, I only paid for what I could afford. So a lot of times I went part-time. So I would, there were semesters, actually I was on the quarter system back then. So I was taking 1 or 2 classes at a time because that's all I could afford. So, and because of that, it took me almost 6 years to graduate. But I was just whatever I could, 1 class, 2 class, 3 classes, however much money I had for the upcoming quarter, that's what I paid for. So again, it took me a little bit longer to get through, but I got through completely debt-free. Now, that was my undergrad. Now, my grad school was a little bit different. I just went back to grad school recently. I was in grad school from 16 to 18 and went back to Kennesaw State as well. So what happened there was I actually was an employee of the school. I was working for the school in their marketing department. And as an employee, they will pay your tuition. It's called the TAP, which is it stands for Tuition Assistance Program. So the school completely pays for your tuition. So I was still responsible for books. So I had to pay for books out of pocket. So I went to grad school paid for it. Now, even though I had my tuition paid for, I still applied for scholarship money so I could, use that for books. So I actually earned 2 smaller scholarships totaling $1,500, completely paid for all the books that I would need. And the other thing I did was I bought used books. And the other thing I did to save money was I borrowed books from classmates that, just took that class the semester before. And I was like, hey, can I borrow your books? I'll give them back, whatever. So I saved hundreds of dollars just borrowing books from classmates that had just taken the class before. And then what happened was I never, toward the end of my grad school run, I actually changed jobs. I got a job in the private sector. So I was prepared to lose that scholarship, that tuition reimbursement program. I was, budgeting, me and my wife were budgeting, okay, let's figure out, how we're gonna have to pay out of pocket for the rest of my schooling because I want to finish. But I was, luckily I discovered that my new employer had a tuition reimbursement program, which that was the first thing I did. The first day on the job, that was the first thing I signed up for. Let me get this going. So they actually paid for my last 2 semesters in a tuition reimbursement program, which was a tremendous help. So I ended up going to grad school completely debt-free and earning a degree that would, if I would have paid out of pocket, it would have been over $20,000. So that was something that I never would have had the opportunity to do financially if it weren't for all of those programs that I just mentioned. So tremendously blessed with those opportunities. And that was one of the reasons why I wrote the book, is because I wanted to share those stories to give other people ideas and hope and encouragement that there are ways to do this.
How did the, oh, sorry, yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say, I know you said it in the book, but what did you get your graduate degree in?
Oh, yes. So I didn't mention that. So I'll tell you both. My undergrad degree was in media communications, which, like I said, I wanted to get into journalism and broadcasting. And then I went back to school and got a master's in professional writing.
So how did that, so one of the big things that you talk about is you need to like think about what you're going to school for. So when you were
Right.
deciding to get your master's, what did you have in mind for your future self?
Yeah, that's a good question. So really, to be honest, there was really only one program that Kennesaw State offered that I was interested in, and it was the master's. It was a MA, a Master of Arts in Professional Writing, and that's because that's exactly what I did for a career. I was a copywriter and a copy editor at the school, and then the new job that I have now that I left for, I'm a technical writer and editor for a transportation consulting firm in downtown Atlanta. So that program mirrored up exactly with what I'm doing as a profession. And I'll bring this up because I'm in the minority, because there's only about, I want to say it's something like 37% of college graduates actually work in the field of their degree. So that brings up the question, how valuable is, like what you guys are saying, how valuable is getting the degree? But for me, I knew exactly what I wanted to do, and I wanted to, further my education only if it mirrored up exactly to what I'm, wanting to do. And I know that's most people never know what they want to do. So that's a big challenge for a lot of us is, what exactly, are the passions that I want to pursue? What am I interested in? And, but luckily for me, I've reached a point in my life and my career where I figured out what I'm interested in and what I can do for a job and a career.
It's sort of actually interesting. I mean, this is sort of a segue into one of our earlier episodes, is that we did 5-year predictions. And one of the questions that we asked each other is, in 5 years, will we be working in our trained profession? And Jack, I believe you said no, correct?
I think, man, I don't remember. I think I probably did say no.
I think I said I would be out of the lab, but still involved in science. But just sort of funny to your point that only, what was it, 37 or 35% continue to work in their trained fields.
Yeah, and actually, I read that. I actually have the stats here. I read it wrong, Al. It's actually 27%. 27% of all college graduates actually work in the field of their degree. And then the other stat that's interesting is 41% of recent college graduates work in a job that doesn't even require a degree. So there's that too. So see, this is where a lot of these problems are lying. Like, people are getting degrees, going into debt, tens of thousands of dollars of debt, getting a degree that they didn't even need. 41% are working a job that they don't even need a degree for, and they probably have student loan debt. So that's where you have to really do your due diligence, and you really have to decide, okay, what degree program is going to lead to a more fulfilling, a more higher compensated position versus, if I just get a generic degree and, whatever, and I want to be, a GM of a Dick's Sporting Goods store, you might not need a degree. You can just go there and work your way up through promotions and stuff. So those are things that people have to consider.
So I agree with you in what you're saying, but just sort of to be devil's advocate, how would you sort of respond to statements that college kind of develops young people, it makes you be somewhat independent, gives you, sort of confidence about living on your own, and college is valuable, even if you're not working in your field, college is valuable for, I guess, developmental reasons.
Yeah, all of that stuff you say, Al, is true, but you have to ask at what cost, right? Yeah,
Sure.
there's tremendous value in if it's the first time you're leaving home. It's going to teach you responsibility. It's going to teach you accountability. It's going to teach you social skills. But at what cost? That's the question. Is that how much is that worth? Is it worth going into $80,000 of debt that you're going to spend the next 40 years of your life paying off? Or is it worth maybe it's not worth that. Maybe, there's tons of ways to get higher education without the traditional college route. And there's ways of doing all of those things that we just talked about. There's ways of, getting independence, getting responsibility, getting accountability, getting socially, developed. There's ways of doing all that too without going to college. Now, I'm not anti-college. Obviously, I have 2 degrees, but I'm anti-debt. So that's really my message to answer your question now, you just really have to ask at what cost, and you have to, weigh that out.
Well, transitioning to the third part of your book, you discuss the solutions. So I don't know if you want to just kick around some of those ideas.
Sure. Let's see. So we're talking about.
How about we start with like employer tuition reimbursement plans?
Okay.
I mean, you mentioned it a little bit, but
yeah, this is actually big, because what we're seeing now, this is actually very encouraging. What's going on in our country is we're seeing a lot more companies offering this. And the big companies are going to be the ones that get the news, the headlines. Just recently, Target announced they are going to be offering tuition reimbursement for all their employees. So that shows me that, hey, Target is a company that actually values education, that values their employees, helping their employees achieve goals. Those are excellent things. So there's so many companies now that are doing this that weren't. I mean, when I was an undergrad in the 90s, this was an unheard of concept. I mean, companies might have been doing it, but I'd never heard of tuition reimbursement programs at whatever company you were working for. So this is a really good trend that's happening in our country, I should say, that a lot of companies are doing this. And even if they are not doing it, I would encourage you, like if you're working at a company and they don't offer it, I would encourage you to go to your boss or your HR director and say, hey, I'm interested in going to school, taking this program that completely would match up with my position. And not only would it help me, it would help you and the company, the employer. So I would be willing to bet many times that employer would say, hey, we would like to help you with this. Maybe they offer you 50%. Maybe they just say, hey, well, we want to help you with this. We're going to pay you some of this to do this. So even if your company doesn't offer it, still ask, right? Because there could always be a case-by-case basis that they offer that to that employer or to the employee.
Yeah, I think our sister works for Starbucks, and I think she's going to start taking classes through Arizona State online.
Right. Yeah, Starbucks.
So
that's another
cool.
one.
Yeah, you mentioned that. Best
Starbucks
Buy
is one. There's so many of them. I know Publix is one now that's doing it. I mean, all the big companies that everybody is familiar with does it, but so many of them now are doing it too. And it might not be 100%, might be 50%, or they might say, hey, we'll pay for your books, or we'll help you out. There's so many ways, but the main point is, hey, if you're looking for a job right now, or if you're looking to change jobs, that should be, one of the things you look for. Hey, let me look at the company benefits. What's the benefit package? Do they offer tuition reimbursement program? Because you never know when you might want to use it.
Jack, were you offered that? Because I know that was that was sort of just like what you just said. That was one of my company's selling points, is that they offered, I believe it was up to $5,000 a year in tuition reimbursement.
Well, I mean, when I was studying for the actuarial exams, it was kind of built into the actuarial student program. So they were reimbursing us for the exam fees and the prep courses. So I kind of did have sort of a reimbursement program. Another thing that you bring up that's pretty astonishing is that there's about 100 million in unclaimed scholarships.
Yeah. Go ahead.
I mean, I guess when I was younger, I thought it was just maybe too hard to apply for some. I don't know I don't know what you think, or how that could be.
Yeah. I mean, you brought up the point that you thought you got scholarships because you were the only one that applied. I mean,
right.
I sort of thought, I didn't know I mean, you bring up a lot of things that I wish I would have known when I was 18, but
Right. We all of us,
right,
that goes for all of us. Yeah.
especially in reference to these scholarships, because I never wanted to talk to my counselors in high school. I would have never in a million years went in and talked to them about scholarships, and I just wouldn't have done it. And yeah, I just had no idea where to even look for them. But you
Right.
put out some
Right.
good resources in the books about where to go to find those.
Yeah,
Um,
such a good point, Al. To go back to the number that Jack, you were talking about, $100 million a year now in unclaimed scholarships. So I researched that too, because when I first read that, I was like, that's astonishing. That can't be true. Um, and that's actually on the low end. Okay, I chose the lowest number I could find. I've seen much higher numbers, people quoting much higher numbers than that. But whatever the number is, the fact is there's so much money out there that goes unclaimed. And I can tell a personal story because of validity to this, because when I worked at Kennesaw State, I worked in the on the side of the continuing and professional education side. So that's the non-credit, like the certificate courses. Those are the professional based training courses. So we actually gave out scholarships for that too. And I sat there every year and saw us have this scholarship budget of hundreds of thousands of dollars go untapped every year. And I didn't understand. I was like, do people not know that it exists? Are people and don't want to take the time to apply for it because they think there's too much competition for it and they're not going to get it? What is it like? And I think it's a combination of all of it. And usually these scholarship applications are very simple. Al, you just go on there and it'll be one open-ended question. It'll say, how can this scholarship money help you? Or how can this, what will you do with this scholarship money? How can it change your life? It's just an open-ended essay question, and it'll say 250 word, minimum. And, that might take you 15 to 30 minutes if you sit down there and think about it. And that's it. And so many people don't want to take the time to do it, or maybe they're intimidated because they think, well, there's probably going to be a million people applying for this, so why even waste my time? I'm not going to get it. So there's a lot of reasons why people don't apply for it. But yeah, the message in my book is that, hey, go for it. Like, I was applying for $500 scholarships. I mean, that's another thing, Al, is I think a lot of people will shy away from the smaller number ones. They want to, hey, I want to get that $25,000 scholarship. I'm not going to waste my time on a $1,000 or a $500 one. But hey, you waste your time on $10,000 scholarships, and what if you win all 10 of those? And there you go. You got $10,000. So it's really just a matter of how you look at it. But those are the ones I got. I applied for those small ones and I got both of them. And now one of them, the $500 one, they gave that away. There were multiple winners of that. I want to say maybe, I don't know, 5 or 6, maybe a half dozen. So it wasn't like I had to beat everybody out. I'd beat, I was one of 6 winners or something like that. So they spread the money out. So that's what you see a lot of times with the scholarships. That's what we did as well in the continuing education program. Was we never gave full scholarships. We broke it up. That way we could have more people win more than just saying, hey, we're going to give one full scholarship to this one person. We're going to take that money and break it up maybe 4 ways and give 4 people an opportunity to maybe change their life with that money. So that happens too with some of the scholarships.
You also I sort of vaguely remember, like, when I would, and the rare occasion that I did see like a $500 scholarship offered, I kind of would remember thinking, well, that's not going to really contribute a lot.
Right.
But when I was reading your book, and you put it into perspective of this maybe would take 30 minutes, and then you think of that as like an hourly rate, $500 for 30 minutes is $1,000 an hour. And it's like, well, geez, I'm an idiot, because that's a great return.
Yeah.
That's an excellent way that's a perfect perspective right there. That's the excellent way to look at that. That's ROI, return on investment right there.
Yeah.
So that's exactly how people should look at it is, hey, what if I just apply for one scholarship a week? Or some people are really aggressive. They apply for one a day or whatever, just set a goal like, hey, let me just find one a week. I mean, can you spend 30 minutes a week? Like, you apply for a scholarship, and maybe you apply for 10 and maybe you get 2. Well, hey, you just got 2. You got, hey, you're still getting, you're winning. You're getting 20% back or whatever. So yeah, that's a good way to look at it, Al, for sure.
Some of the other alternatives you brought up, and I had never heard of this, or
Okay.
necessarily an alternative, but these, you call them the MOOCs, massive
Oh.
open online courses.
Yeah.
I found this very interesting. And anyone can these are just free online courses anyone can take.
Yeah, it's actually pronounced MOOCs. So it's an acronym. It's
the double O.
Yeah, it's MOOCs. So it's massive online. What was it? Massive open online courses.
Yep.
Yeah, you got it. Yeah, open online courses. So this is kind of a newer thing, Jack. This started, I started hearing about this maybe about 5 years ago. And this is something that the Ivy League schools started. I believe Harvard started this, is they started putting these courses out there for free. So anybody can go on and take them. Now, there's not a whole lot of, I guess, variety to choose from right now from what I've seen. But the opportunity here is if you're trying to figure out an interest level on different subjects or different courses, you can take some of these courses and figure out, hey, is this something that I'm interested in? Is something that I want to pursue? Is this like, do I want to pursue digital marketing? Do I want to pursue, whatever, public relations or something like that? And then you can take one of these courses. It's kind of like I don't know what the right word is, getting your feet wet. So you take one of these courses and you're like, hey, I'm really interested in this. I think I can do really well in this. And then you could go from there, maybe enroll into a college program or enroll into another online, like a paid online course, or maybe go to a technical school or a trade school. But yeah, those MOOCs, there's a lot of people that swear by those things. So I've never actually taken one before, but there's a lot of people that speak very, highly and positively of those opportunities.
I actually started after I read this, when you mentioned it, I looked up and I saw some like crypto classes at MIT.
Okay.
That I actually listened in a couple lectures just to see what it was. Yeah, it's pretty cool.
That is cool, man. I didn't realize that they offered that. So there you go. See that it's just, and it's free. That's the whole point of it. It's a free learning opportunity.
Well, you have some of these topics that you have listed in these courses offered are very, very, I would say very, very valuable.
Okay, great.
SEO, sales, business and finance, coding. Those are, I think, incredibly all things that I struggle with and all things that I think are becoming more and more valuable.
I'm glad you brought those up because I couldn't remember all the different course offerings off the top of my head. But yeah, those are all relevant skill sets that people can use today. Those are, none of that stuff is antiquated. That's stuff that, my 5-year-old son, he keeps talking about, I want to learn how to code. I'm like, okay, well, mommy says you got to wait till you're 6 and we'll get you one of these little kid, we'll sign him up for one of those kid coding classes that he wants to do. So yeah, those are all good things that people can take. And you take, hey, I don't know anything about SEO. Let me go see if I can learn it. I take that SEO class. I come out of there. I'm like, I'm still clueless. Well, at least I didn't waste thousands of dollars. I took this class for free. I figured out, hey, that's not really my cup of tea. Maybe I go learn coding instead or whatever. So that's kind of, the opportunity there is that you can really, kind of hone in on what skill set you want to learn.
Or it's possible that someone types that into Google and it is possible it's the first thing that pops up.
There you go. That's true. That is very true.
I guess another thing it might be cool to touch on is for people that are in college, maybe right now, maybe they've taken out debt, maybe they haven't, but what ways they can save while they're in college.
Right. Yeah, very good. There's a lot of ways to save while you're in college. And that kind of sounds crazy when you say, you can actually save money while you're in school. And you say, well, how is that possible? We're just talking about how astronomical the cost is to go to college. But if you are smart and you're wise, there's so many ways to save while you're in school. So really the first way to save, if you make one decision, if you just make this one decision, and that decision is to stay in state and to go to a public school. Well, actually, that would be two decisions, I guess. Stay in state, go to a public school. You're going to save tens of thousands of dollars just by making that one decision. So that's a big one there. And like I said, when I was an undergrad, I had the opportunity to live at home. If you have an opportunity to live at home or live someplace cheaply, maybe with a friend, maybe a basement apartment or something, that is a significant way to cut down on the cost of living. Now, here's another one, Jack, that, this is one that this didn't really apply to me because I didn't live on campus, but a lot of people live on campus. Now, if you live on campus, do you really need a car? Because today you have so many options of transportation. You have, Uber, Lyft, you have people on scooters, bikes, roller skates, skateboards. You have most big colleges, they provide like a busing or a transit system that, a shuttle. They'll have a shuttle. And then of course, you can bum rides from a friend. Now, AAA says that the cost of owning a car is about $9,000 a year, which to me is astonishing. That's the total cost of all the expenses owning a car, gas, insurance, maintenance, all that stuff, car payments. So let's say you were like me and you took 6 years to graduate your undergrad, but you didn't have a car. You just lived on campus. Well, shoot, 6 times almost $10,000, you've saved $60,000. I mean, so that could be a big savings. Now, other things you could do, you don't need to get a gym membership when you've already paid for it through your student fees, through your tuition, and when you can go to your school gym for free, which you've already paid for. So it's not really free. So there's no reason to go get a gym membership because you can work out at your campus, which you've already paid for. Now, another big one is learn to cook. Okay. This is something that I wish I did. Because I remember when I was an undergrad, I ate out every single meal, fast food, not only is that terribly unhealthy, it gets costly. Now, if you can learn how to make simple meals, maybe crock pot recipes or, just simple, cook a pot of spaghetti and just eat on it for the week, make some simple meals. You will not only will you eat better, you're more healthy and you're going to save a lot of money. So that's one that you can do. Also, when you're in college, you get that student ID and you get those student discounts everywhere you go. So find out where you can get those discounts. A lot of restaurants are offering you discounts. Best Buy, if you need a new laptop, they're going to give you a student discount. So those student ID cards are very, very valuable. You can get so many discounts that you might not even realize. So all you have to do is ask wherever you go. Ask that merchant, hey, do you guys offer a student discount? I remember using my ID for probably about 10 years after I graduated. I was going to the movie theaters, getting discounts on movie tickets, whatever. I still kept that card for a long time. So, and of course, another thing, which I didn't do, earn your degree in 4 years. If you can earn your degree in 4 years, you're cutting out, 1 to 2 years extra of going to school that you're paying for. I mean, you have to pay for that. So if you can work with your academic counselor or advisor, get your schedule lined up where you can graduate in 4 years, you're going to save money. I mean, people don't really think about that. Here's another one. I put maximizing campus amenities. So what that really means is like, hey, don't, go to the library, see how many resources they have, printers, software, ink, you don't need to go buy a printer and an ink cartridge. And, when your school provides all that, probably through your library system. And then one of the other ones I thought of was, this is a good one, is that one of the biggest costs that we have is food costs. That's one of the biggest costs that we have in life is food. Keep your eyes open around campus. What's the number one thing that they do to get students to come to an event? They offer free food. So pay attention to your student emails, to your social media, to, there's flyers all over campus. Hey, come to this volleyball game. Hey, we've got an event, free pizza. So I had this down to a science where I was eating free almost every day. And hey, you can call me a scavenger, you can call me frugal. I like to use the word resourceful, but I'm telling you, food costs so much money. If you can, go to some of these events, not only you're going to meet new friends, you're going to learn, you're just going to learn about all the, the offerings on campus that, go, hey, the student newspaper is celebrating 50 years. We're having a cookout on the campus green. Come get a burger. Sure, I'll come get a burger. Talk to some people. So yeah, if you can just pay attention to that. There's so many events that have free food, and you can save a lot of money by doing just that. So so those are some of the many, that's by no means is that the full list. There's so many ways to save while you're in school.
Yeah, I would say every Thursday we always had student speakers where they offered pizza, and every Thursday I wasn't eating lunch. I was just waiting for the pizza.
There you go. That's a man that I'm with you on that. I would have probably been standing right next to you in line. Very good. That's how you got to do it.
And then the other thing, sort of just what you mentioned about finishing in 4 years, probably the biggest difference that you didn't mention is that you lose out, if you take longer, you lose out on your increased earnings.
That's absolutely right.
Yeah.
That's absolutely, and I can't remember the statistic exactly, but the majority of undergrads do not finish in 4 years. It's somewhere kind of, I took 5.5. It's between 5 and 6 years. And there's a lot of reasons for that. But that's a big point, Al, is that you're missing out on, if it takes you 6 years to graduate, you're missing out on 2 years of earning potential right there. And if you get a job making $50,000 a year, you just missed out on $100,000 of income. And so those are things that people don't really think about when they're, that young. You're young and naive, and you're not really thinking that far ahead, I guess. So these are things that I try to mention in the book and try to, let people know, hey, this is something that could really be life-changing, just, finishing school a couple of years earlier.
Yes, you want to talk about maybe some of the alternatives to college? Talked about like vocational and sort of trades like work.
Yeah, this is probably the biggest chapter in my book, and I want to say this is probably the most important conversation that we're going to have is the alternatives to a traditional 4-year college, right? So we have so many more options now than probably when I was in undergrad, and a lot of this is because of the internet. There's so many more opportunities out there. Now, the first one is, this is the glare and the obvious thing, is just go to work or start a business. Now, I think I said earlier, 40% of all high school graduates don't even go to college. So they're just going to work, I guess. I mean, so we don't need to spend a whole lot of time on that, but you can go to work. College isn't for everyone. That's okay. But there's a lot of opportunities to get higher education without going to the traditional 4-year college route. Like you said, Al, one of the biggest ones is technical school. It's also known, technical school, trade school, vocational school. I think those are all pretty interchangeable words, but tech school is so big now, because if you know what you're interested in or what skill set you might want to develop, you can go to a trade school and you can develop that work-based training skill in so much less time and in so much less money. And then, like you were saying before, Al, you're getting out into the workforce before most of your peers, and you're gaining potential income earlier than most. So that is a really good route to explore if you know I guess an industry that you're interested in. If you're passionate about something, that is a big one. So obviously, community school is big, because you can get a 2-year associate degree, and a 2-year associate degree leads to a lot of really good jobs. People might not realize that, but a community college, not only that's going to be significantly less expensive than a 4-year college route, the classroom sizes are going to be smaller. So you're going to have more one-on-one time with your teachers and your instructors. And you're going to get, and it's less time. You can get that 2-year associate's degree, and then you'll have job opportunities there. Now, we talked a little bit about this a second ago, online college. Online college, now we're talking about the paid online college, not the free ones, but online college is significantly less expensive than going to a traditional college, because you're only paying for the course. You're not paying those student fees. You're not paying parking fees. You're not paying the athletic fees. So schools, I've actually had administrators at KSU tell me personally, remember last year we had the pandemic and everyone's doing online learning. Well, guess what? All those universities, they were losing money because they didn't have those students coming on campus paying all those extra fees that I just mentioned. So online college, if you can learn online, not everybody is wired to learn online, but if you can learn online, it's significantly less expensive. Now, I touched on this a second ago because I talked about working at continuing or professional education programs. A lot of schools have this. It's an extension of their college. So basically, that's the non-credit side. So that caters to like what we call the working adult. Now, this one's more near and dear to my heart because I've actually seen people's lives change. I've seen people come back and get, this is similar to trade school. So if you want to get a professional certificate and say you want to be a culinary chef, or you want to be a paralegal, or you want to be a medical assistant, those courses are specifically training you to get that specific job. So these are for people who are like career changers, or who are, a lot of people, the working adults that never even finished high school and went back and got their GED and never had a chance to go to college. So now later in life, they've had a couple kids or whatever, you know, they're 35 years old, 40 years old. Now later in life, they have a chance to go get some education and say, hey, you know, I want to go work in a law office, but I don't want to be a lawyer, but hey, I could be a paralegal. Let me go do this paralegal program, which I can do in a year and pay $5,000 to do, and lead to a pretty decent job, stable career. These are good options for a lot of people. So there's that route. Now, the next one is apprenticeships. Now, my sister's done an apprenticeship. There's lots of different types of apprenticeships, but I'll tell you my story. My sister, and it's in the book as well, but she got a job working at the front desk at a salon, like a hair salon. So the owner of the salon comes up to her and says, hey, would you be interested in being my apprentice, doing an apprenticeship program? She's like, okay, well, what is that? She says, well, you work under me. It's a 2-year program, and I'm going to train you on everything, the whole business. You're going to learn about how the whole business works, and you're going to learn hair and makeup and become a professional stylist. And she said, sure, I'll do it. And of course, they still paid her whatever her hourly rate was. So it was a paid position, but it led to a much better opportunity. Once that apprenticeship was up, she became a professionally licensed, makeup artist, hairstylist, and she still does that today. So there's lots of apprenticeship opportunities like that. That will directly lead to that position that you're working toward. Now, of course, there's always the military option. Now, of course, military isn't for everybody. We all know that. But the military, a lot of people go to the military specifically for one reason: to get those education benefits. The GI Bill is one. There's several different ones that they offer, but the military will pay for your school. And what happens is a lot of people will end up making a career out of working in the military. So the military is an option. And then, of course, we already talked about the MOOCs. And then the last one I had was internships or volunteer opportunities. Now, this is one that I've done in the past where there's been companies that I've wanted to work for, and they didn't have any openings. And I just said, hey, can I just come in and volunteer one day a week? Or that's just, that's my own, that's free, they're not paying me. Now, I might not have 40 hours a week to volunteer, but hey, I can come in on a Friday afternoon for 3 hours, or, maybe a couple of days a week. And so I'm networking with people, I'm meeting people, I'm learning how the business works. I'm learning. And guess what? I'm going to be the first one to hear about when an opportunity does open up. I'm going to be the first one to hear about it because I'm on the inside now. So that's an opportunity that people can look at if they know specifically like the industry that they want to work in, or say, hey, I want to work for this specific company and that's my dream job and that's my goal. Hey, call them up. Do you guys have any internships? Now, most internships pay now. Now, back in my day, none of them paid. So that was just free, like a volunteer job. But now most internships pay. Actually, the company I work for, I was astonished to find out we pay our interns $20 an hour. I was like, what? What? Hey, can I intern on the side too? I'd love to do that. I'll be an intern too. So yeah, a lot of companies pay their interns pretty well. They take care of them. So those are opportunities as well. If you know specifically what you want to do and what you want to learn about.
Yeah, I guess just from a personal anecdote, I had an ex-girlfriend whose dad was a pipe fitter, and I just remember her telling me how much he made, and I almost couldn't believe it. He was an incredibly hard worker, and he worked the night shift for like 30 some odd years, but it was a lot of money. And we didn't really talk about this, but I also just finished grad school, and I remember sort of in my head thinking about it was like, well, when compared to if I would have just went to a 2-year like vocational training, was it worth it? And I'm very happy with my current job, but it's definitely not a slam dunk either way. So
yeah, and I'll be, since you brought this up, I'll tell my personal story too. So when I was debating about going to grad school, so there's two barriers. There's two barriers that need to be removed. The first barrier is the financial barrier. I had that removed with the tuition reimbursement program and the scholarships and stuff. That's a big one. That one was removed. But I also had the time barrier. Do I even have time to do this? I'm working a full-time job. My wife and I were about to have our first kid. Can I even physically is this even possible for me to do this time-wise? Can I commit to this? So that was the other barrier. That barrier was the one so even though I had the money, I didn't even have to worry about the finances, but I still didn't think that I could do it. So I actually thought about it for an entire year. I sat on that decision for a year thinking and like you were saying, is this worth it? Like, is it even worth, if I go through this program for 3 years, will it even be, would this degree even matter? Like, will it even be worth it? And I just kind of, to me, I did it because it was something that I was interested in, writing and editing. That's what I do for a career. So I was like, you know what, whatever happens, I'm going to be more skilled. I'm going to have more education. I don't know if this is going to lead to a better job. I don't know if this is going to get me a higher paid job. That's all stuff that's kind of out of my control. Now I'm, thrilled to say that it did, but there was no guarantee of any of that. So I'll be honest, like you were saying, I took a risk too. I took a risk, and it was a massive time commitment for me, going to school at night, working all day, 7 to 6, and then going to class from 6:30 to almost 10 o'clock at night, 2 days a week. And, coming home and eating dinner at 11 o'clock at night, and then getting back up the next day at 6 a.m. to go to work. That's a big, that's a massive commitment. And so for me, I just kind of, I was like, hey, whatever comes of this, what the decision came was, what would I have more regret? Would I have more regret of not at least trying, or would I have more regret of, like, I just had an opportunity to have my whole master's degree paid for, and I just said no. I said, I didn't feel like it. So, I didn't want to have that regret, I guess, of at least not trying. So that's kind of, what made the decision for me. But those are major decisions that people have to face. You're absolutely right, Al.
So I think we're about ready to wrap it up. Al,
Sure.
Did you have a favorite quote or message from this book?
There were a lot. Things to think about in the future for me were, I guess, hopefully for future kids were to really make sure they scour some of these scholarship websites to find scholarships that they can get, something that I did not really think about when I was looking to go to school. I guess that's sort of one of the main takeaways. And then really to truly evaluate what you want to do with your life versus what you're going to school for, which is sort of kind of what we just alluded to, is like, is college right for you?
Okay. Yeah, I think I was feeling some pain from mom and dad that I didn't apply to more and more scholarships. Yeah. But yeah, you also had a line in here. I'm sorry to say that your government is betting on your failure. And the whole idea of them lending money, and that it's, we have 1.7 trillion affecting 45 million Americans. It's a big issue. So I'm hoping people start thinking more and taking more responsibility and do their due diligence. But I'm definitely going to be looking into more like free online class. I mean, I look on YouTube a lot for a lot of my information anyway, but I'm going to start looking into some more of those classes.
Yeah, I mean, when I read this section, the first thing I thought was one of us should go take a course on SEO to see how we can get our podcast up the search chain.
Yeah.
And then coding and development courses are something I've been telling myself I would like to learn. I just haven't done it.
So Jason, sometimes we talk about like books within the book.
Right.
Are there any books that you would recommend or that you're looking forward to reading about like student loan debt or?
Yeah, there's actually one of the books that I sourced, that I researched and sourced and quoted in my book. Actually have it right here. I'll show you. It's called Paying the Price. It's college costs, financial aid, and the betrayal of the American system, or excuse me, the betrayal of the American dream. And it's written by Sarah Goldrick Rabb. And this book is it's about 400 pages. It's heavily researched book on the whole, student loan debt crisis, everything that's going on. If you like reading a book of statistics, that's this book. It can get a little mind numbing. You kind of start swimming in the statistics, but there's some really interesting stuff in there. But that is a book that I actually, referenced in my book that was, it had some tremendous value. There's some really good data in there that I think I quoted a little bit of as well. So that is definitely one that I would recommend to anybody who is, wanting to research this whole topic of the student loan debt crisis any further. That is a very good book to get your hands on and to kind of, it's really more of a reference book, really. But that's a good one to check out as well.
Cool. All right, I think probably with that said, Jason, do you want to give us a plug of where people can find you and where they can find not only this book, but your other books?
Oh, yeah, I appreciate that, Al. Yeah, the best place for people to find me is on my website, which is yourmarginmatters.com. And on there, you can find, my blogs. I have a YouTube channel that I use to promote all the content from my books. And then, of course, I have all the information on my books that you just mentioned. So if you just go to my website, all my content is there. And you can email me through the website if you want to contact me for any reason. Always happy to hear from people. People, like to give me ideas all the time of blogs or videos or book ideas. So yeah, that's the best place to catch me, yourmarginmatters.com.
All right. And with that said, please reach out to us at brothersonbooks@gmail.com for any book recommendations, or if you would like to be a guest host for a particular book you have in mind. A great review or rating on whichever platform you're listening to would be greatly appreciated. And lastly, if you can think of any friend, family member, or coworker that might like this episode, please pass it along. I'm Alex Allweil, and with me as always is my brother Jack Allweil. And yet again, a special thanks to Jason Brown. It was a great book, and I think it was a great episode. And thank you again, Jason.
Thanks for having me, guys. Really appreciate it.
Yeah. What are we discussing next time, Al?
We're doing the book Wall Street Bets. I sort of forgot about that. I believe this is about the insanity of GameStop and the GameStop stock price, correct?
Well, it's actually not. So Jamie Rogozinski created Wall Street Bets on Reddit. And this is,
okay.
and I think it was around 08, 09. And this goes through a lot of the crazy stories on that forum. And I finished it last night, actually. And some of the stories are quite crazy.
Okay, well, I have yet to start it, but I look forward to it.
Okay. Well, take care again, Jason.
Thanks, guys. Really appreciate it.
Let's see.